Special Council meeting of December 30th, 2024. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not yet.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Knoll?
Here.
Ms. Atrap? Ms. Weltman?
Here.
Ms. Goldick?
Here.
Mr. Lemay?
Here.
Mr. Gentile?
Here.
Dr. Long?
Here.
Our first agenda item this evening is our cleanup appropriations ordinance 2024-46. It's the last legislation of the year. Mr. Brzezinski, would you please take us through it?
Thank you, Mayor. Not too many changes, and certainly all of them explainable. In police other, the night of New Year's Eve last year, actually going into New Year's Day morning, we had two cruisers that got in accidents on 271. One was an old cruiser. They totaled it and gave us the cash for that. And we were going to replace it anyway, so that was fine. The other one was a newer vehicle, and it cost us $10,000 to get it replaced or repaired. We did receive the revenue for it, but that's the main reason why automotive costs went up in police department. But it is a net wash of zero.
We got insurance proceeds.
Yes.
For the damage, okay.
Minus our $500 deductible.
Was
Correct.
this, I forgot about this, was this on 271, someone got
Yes.
hit on the side of the road, a cruiser did?
Yeah, they were on an accident or OBI and somebody, OBI hit them.
Oh, God.
You're not gonna believe it, they had no insurance.
Shocking.
Yeah.
We were fortunate, no officer was injured.
Right? And you should see the dash cam, the guy jumping out of the way
Oh, my God.
from the tow company too.
Wow.
The other was, we had more repairs than initially anticipated for our traffic signs and signals. So obviously, we've got to get those up. And also the cost of the electric for our traffic signals has gone up in '24. Under building and the mayor, it's a similar concept. It's the timing of PERS being paid that relates to December of last year, that hits in January of this year. So it doesn't necessarily true up 100% to what PERS is gonna be, because you got carryover from the previous year. So those are $400 each increases. Under finance, you've got the similar phenomena, and it's simply because they're smaller departments. In police, a much bigger department with a different pension system, but a lot more employees, there is a little bit more wiggle room to handle costs like that. In small departments, it's gonna stick out.
Is it just slop over a year end somehow, or it just?
You don't
can't-
pay December until January.
Okay,
But when we budget, we're budgeting this year's
okay,
PERS costs.
yeah, okay.
Under finance, similar phenomena, and also there was a benefit change after the budget was approved in healthcare. Engineering, similar time in a PERS payments for one individual. In fire levy under personal services, it's a combination to total 42,000. The biggest chunk is overtime is higher than budgeted and anticipated. And in working with the chief, it's becoming harder and harder and harder to get part-timers to work for us. And when our part-timers aren't there, then our full-time staff has to pick it up, and it does add additional cost. We're in the process of analyzing, and we'll be coming down in the first quarter of 25. Analyzing, does it make sense to hire an additional new guy and back down on some of these part-timers? Because in also a lot of other fire departments, they're starting to become short-staffed. So a full-time person, say in Bedford, is gonna go and do overtime in Bedford versus coming to work part-time for us.
Yeah.
because they're gonna make more money, and it's also pensionable within the fire pension system.
Right.
Unlike if they work part-time for us here, they're under social security.
Chief,
So
we
it
talked,
It doesn't account.
yeah, we talked about this before. This is just a steadily growing problem. So this is kind of the real dollar cost of this year that shows how bad the problem is.
I think we touched on this at our budget meeting, correct? I think we did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is, I'm glad that we're pursuing it.
Yeah, it's not simply, obviously, from this conversation, a economic issue, a staffing issue. And it's just, the chief is just spending extraordinary amounts of time trying to fill our part-time positions.
Are you restrained on lateral hires? Like we made that change for the police department to allow lateral hires. Are you constrained by the contract on that? If we would want to, I'm just
It's
curious.
kind of, yeah, it's kind of complicated. A little bit of it deals with the charter, although in our civil service, it allows a lateral that comes from another pension system. So the answer to your question is yes. know,
You
as long-
could,
You could, and it bumps the age up a little bit too, versus taking an entrance test initially. That has a cap on it, but if you're coming from Ohio Police and Fire from another city, our age is raised and you can transfer over.
okay,
Our civil service rules allow that.
okay.
The other amount, the $9,000 that makes up a total of 42, changes in medical benefits throughout the year.
And that is more people taking family coverage or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And or getting married, and now you got a spouse, et cetera. Under fire other, ambulance fee collections are gonna go over by $6,000. Part of it is the timing of what came over from December that got paid in January, and part of it is the fact that we did receive probably $40,000 to $45,000 more in ambulance billing fees. And then obviously that ties to the collection fee too.
Mhm.
Then police and fire pension, very similar phenomena as I explained with the PERS people. For police, it's more the timing of pension payments year over year. And under fire, it is a timing of the payments plus the fact that we also had additional overtime, which we're paying pension on, which we wouldn't have been paying had it been part-timers under social security. And under the bond retirement fund, late in the year last year, council approved us issuing bonds for the sewer on Shaker Boulevard. And that was not in the mix when we put the budget together. That didn't get settled down until like sort of the middle of December. Council did approve it. It's gonna be obviously 100% reimbursed with special assessments. And then under capital projects, we had several big projects that got deferred for one reason or another. So we're looking to reduce the appropriations in the capital projects fund by $5 million. The biggest piece of that is the Shaker Sewer Phase 2A. That's the project that came in well over budget, and Don's in the process of going out to rebid it, and we rebudgeted it for 25. Also, the Associated Street resurfacing for like your Edgewood and your Forest, that actually got deferred too, because we're gonna wait till we get the sewer project done. And the Gates Mills Road reconstruction, that's the one we just got the $800,000 on from the county to resurface Gates Mills. We were still waiting on a go-ahead, are we gonna get the money, or we're not gonna get the money, so we deferred doing Gates Mills in 24 to 25. And then there were two stormwater projects that Don's trying to get done, and we cannot get the residents to give us easements. They're choosing not to give easements, so we're gonna keep working it. They're budgeted again for 25. But if they're not gonna give an easement, we can't do the project.
How many residents is that? Like a
Two
handful?
main
Just two
ones.
people? Where is it?
Concord is one. And maybe Edgewood. But I know Concord is one for sure.
And this is a line that needs to go between two houses? There's a
Right.
storm line? And is a storm line already there?
No.
No. But that's the best solution
Yes.
is to go.
It's not a major problem. It's a problem that we would like to address.
Yeah.
It's been on the budget for a couple of years and we keep working it, you know,
Okay.
And that's the problem it solves, installing these is just water management,
Yes,
flooding,
yes.
like we.
But not, yeah, not tremendous flooding like we used to see
Right.
on Gates Mills
Yeah.
or down here. But yeah, it's been an issue.
And what's the rationale from the homeowner's perspective? I would feel like
Just
that would,
doesn't want to give an easement. Doesn't want the project on their property.
Okay.
And those are the various changes.
All right. Any questions? We have a motion to suspend.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Ms. Godick?
yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
All right, and a motion for the approval of ordinance 2024-46.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Newell?
Yes.
Ms. Weltman?
Yes.
Ms. Godick?
yes.
Mr. Lemay?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
All right, next, we will briefly have a Charter Review Commission update.
Okay, excuse me. The first Charter Commission in the history of Pepper Pike completed its work and submitted its report to council on Friday, December 27th, 2024. This submission met the extended deadline of December 31st, 2024, and was sent to Sheila at a time that was after work hours. The mayor and all council members should have received the official report by email today, and there should be copies
Yes.
here that Sheila can pass out so that everybody will have a paper copy. We and the residents of the city owe a debt of gratitude to the members of the commission, Scott Bilski, Howard Bachneck, Dagmar Fellows, Cindy Eichhoff, Stephanie Jarrett, Dr. Gary Hoffman, Tamara Rinnick, Rob Resnick, and Matt Vazana. These members were selected by a collaborative process in which every elected official voted for at least 5 members of the 9-member commission. So in other words, a majority were selected by every member of all of the elected officials. We owe this debt of gratitude not only because of the hard work done by the members who spent collectively over 300 hours meeting on 17 separate occasions over a period of 5 months, and countless other hours doing research, drafting, and reviewing minutes, a continuous red line version of the charter, research charts, and the final report, but also because they did so with seriousness of purpose, transparency, civility, and dedication. Moreover, they were thoughtful, open to suggestions from all residents of the city, prudent, and showed excellent judgment. They reached consensus on all accepted revisions through respectful discussions. They designated other suggestions as matters to be taken up by future charter review commissions and referred others to be the subject of new city ordinances. Having completed its work as an ad hoc commission, it is no longer in existence. Members of the commission are available or should be available for questions, although I haven't gone over that.
Mr.
with them, but
Gentili,
they-
that's not correct. They remain in existence, and they still have to meet to pass their final minutes.
They passed their final minutes at the last meeting.
No, they weren't even drafted at the last meeting, Tony.
They passed them in advance, according to Mr. Byron. That was an
Yeah,
acceptable.
it's always, the
Mr.
problem,
Vazana does not agree with that.
yeah, the problem with any commission that goes out of existence, that's for a limited period of time, is the last meeting is never subject to being, the minutes of the last meeting are never subject to being approved. So that's always a problem. oftentimes they'll adopt a rule saying, we're going to review them and sign them ourselves. There's no authority in the Open Meetings Act to do it, but it's an insoluble problem under the way the Open Meetings Act is structured. So,
Why can't they just schedule a meeting?
because then they
And they have to have a minutes meeting. It keeps going in a perpetual
Oh, okay.
nightmare.
Okay, Vazana was under the impression he had to call another meeting. I ran into him when he mentioned that.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Byron, our law director, said that this was an acceptable method.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
technicality, but they don't have any scheduled meetings and they are done with their work. Now, city council must consider the commission's report and accept it, modify it, or reject it. To do this in a timely manner and to submit the charter revisions to the electors in May of 2025, I'm requesting that council schedule 2 special meetings in January, possibly in the first and third weeks of the month. This issue deserves 3 readings and a thorough and thoughtful consideration. I'm also requesting that Mr. Byron draft by Tuesday, January 7th, an ordinance to submit the final charter revisions to the Board of Elections as a single issue. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Just to comment on that, the deadline for getting it to Board of Elections, Steve, is there a hard and a soft deadline?
No, it's a hard deadline. It's February 5th,
February 5th is the hard deadline. And that.
4 p.m.
And so that means an ordinance approved by us,
Delivered,
delivered to the Board of Election by.
certified by the clerk of council.
Okay. That's what they need for them to do their work then at the Board of Election.
Well,
Just walk us through the mechanics
yeah,
of this.
there's a difference between what the Constitution provides and what the state statute provides. The state statute requires filings by February 5th. The Constitution says 60 days before the election, so which would actually be March. But the deadlines for the board to put together the ballots and to send them out to military and overseas voters and absentee voters come way before that 60-day deadline.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is try to get it done by February 5th. If we know that we can get it done the following week, I can call the Board of Elections and say, we need more time and you have to accept it. But we can't I don't recommend jamming them on their schedule that they have to follow.
Yeah.
And I previously talked to Brent Lawler at the board who handles issues and candidates, and they're aware of the conflict. Everybody in the state's aware of the conflict. Nobody's solved the problem, but they're aware of it. If you need an extra week past the 5th, you can do it. But beyond that, you're going to jam them up on their timing, things that they have to do.
Okay.
In order to get in the 3 readings, though, we really need a couple of special council meetings, unless we went further into to February, where there'd be an actual a regular council meeting. So we really need to have a couple of meetings scheduled. Maybe we won't need all of them, but a couple of special council meetings scheduled for January.
You want to try and set that now, or
If people want to,
what?
I'm free any night. I don't have any travel plans except until February, so
The beauty of being retired.
everybody else can look at their calendars.
What do you envision the meetings being like?
Well, the special meetings will only take up the one issue, and that would be the commission report. It'd be to go through the report and decide whether we're going to accept it or modify it or reject it.
Are we going to hear from any of the people who participated?
No, they've given us their report. And that's the input we'll get from them.
I don't know how any of other fellow council members feel about learning more about the process.
Yeah, we talked about that at the last meeting, and the concern about that with 9 commission members, and all of them have slightly nuanced views that they were reluctant to say, I'm speaking for every member of the commission, as they explained a rationale, and there may be other rationales for one of their suggestions. So that was the concern of that, because as Tony mentioned, this was a consensus view. Not everyone agreed with every sentence and every comma, but on balance, they came to a consensus view. And I agree with Tony's description of the process, the earnestness, the civility, the open-mindedness. We were marvelously lucky to have those 9 individuals to bring the kind of work ethic and earnestness and open-mindedness. It was exceeded my expectations from that regard. And not everyone, no one on that commission said, oh, I got everything they would like to change or not change, but they got to a consensus point of view. So I got some impression that, well, can any of us speak for everyone? And so they were a little reluctant to have someone speak for everyone, and as opposed to letting the report speak for itself.
I guess part of, as I went through and read the report, part of me has a few questions about, be interesting to see how you got here, why you put this in, that sort of thing.
Well, there were 3 liaisons who were there, and perhaps we can answer the questions. As I said, you can ask questions of the members
Individually.
but as Jim said, that's a very good point, which I should have mentioned. But they didn't want to have one spokesman speak for the group. They wanted their report to speak for the group. So that's where we are.
If that's their feeling, with all respect to the liaisons, that they don't want a commission member to describe on behalf of the others how they got to a point, I don't think that we should be entertaining, anyone interpreting on behalf of the commission how they got to a point. That doesn't seem right either.
Well,
That seems to be more disconnected.
we can have an open discussion about the report itself, and there were people who were there, and to the extent that if you want to hear from us, you can. If you don't want to ask us individual questions, you don't have to. I'm not saying that we're going to make any kind of a presentation. I'm not, and I don't think Jim or Melanie are either, but we were there, and we can maybe shed some light. Mr. Byron was there too. Mayor was at almost all the meetings. So people who were there can maybe answer some questions. But again, the report speaks for itself. And I think it's really an excellent report. The drafters were really excellent writers, and I don't know that anybody would disagree with that.
I wonder if we could have if we're gonna have 3 readings, and we're gonna try to get this all done before February. If we could have one meeting, normal council meeting, where we, hash it out sort of as best we can as a group. And that would be an opportunity to sort of make notes about, okay, what do we still have, like Scott, like what do you still really want to press on? Like what questions do you still have that you don't feel were fully explained by the liaisons or the mayor or whoever? And then would it be potentially to have another meeting and just invite the commission, whoever can come, even if they don't want to speak, as, a representative of the group. If there's a handful of people who are willing to come, say on a Saturday morning or whatever is convenient, then at least there's a handful of representatives who can really shed some detailed light. Do you think that
If it's council's pleasure to ask them to do that,
Yeah.
we can ask them.
Yeah.
But they are they're under no obligation.
Totally, but I
to
would
do that.
anticipate knowing the people, some of the people on the commission, and
Sure.
that they spent this much time, they might be willing to give,
They might.
one more session,
They-
maybe.
They
They
might.
might, just sitting in on hearing them talk about their report. I mean, they put, I think it was an evolving process on many of these issues, even just language issues. They were very, very detail oriented. Just as far even organizational issues. I mean, things that we wouldn't necessarily think were so material, but they were very focused on making sure they did a good job. And I think they felt that and it was it was a nice thing to see. And I was going to also discuss how much I appreciated the sense of community and how they came together. They, I think, really felt like they were speaking as a group, as the commission. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. I think, that they should be applauded because they really were so respectful of each other. They discussed each issues. And if you looked at the minutes, you could see how different issues evolved through their discussion and how people really listened to each other and kind of came to conclusions, even as to how, what language was more clear. Things that maybe wouldn't seem material, but could be valuable in a way that we don't realize down the road when somebody actually looks at it and reads it. So, I would be open to if they were interested, but I do know that they put a lot of time into this report. They were going back and forth on this for probably the last segment while they were still working on some of the issues, they were also revisiting the report on the sections that they had already done and saying, does anybody have any feedback? Does anybody think we should change anything? And it seemed like there was tremendous consensus on the final results.
And I want to amplify one of the things that Melanie just said, and it's very important. The minutes, all of their deliberations, everything, and the minutes are excellent, are online.
Really good minutes.
And
Yeah.
that'd be a first place I would go to clarify any issues that you might not think are clear.
And then on the report, I think it really does speak for itself as well, because after every section, it says commission recommendations and why they came to that conclusion or why they recommended that. So I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read it yet, Scott, but
I've read it.
yeah. So then, I think it speaks for itself. And to single people out or ask them to come, I think we should just take the report as it is.
Well, I don't want to restrict anybody from getting all the information
Yeah.
they need. And so if it's council's pleasure to ask if they would be available, we can ask anyone, but it's up to them whether they want to come or not, because they were, as Jim said, very strongly did not want to have one person speak for the group.
I would second Tony's comments on the minutes. We had Howard Bocek was the secretary. My goodness, he writes minutes like no one I've ever seen. It's just, he's a great writer. To me, it's the perfect balance between too much and too little. So if someone had a position they were going to take, it's in the minutes. Someone had a different position, it's in the minutes. So you can see the deliberative process just develop as you read the minutes. He just did. It's a thankless job taking minutes, absolutely thankless. And
And he brought in a Star Wars looking microphone so
record the thing.
that he could record it.
You would have appreciated what he had going on here.
For
was
his
something.
own purposes, that it wasn't a recording of the meeting, so that's not a public record, but it was his
Yeah.
own purposes, for minutes purposes, and that's according to our law
Well,
director.
why don't we start with the minutes before we start inviting people? Why don't we just see
And the
where
other
people feel looking at the minutes?
And the other thing I just wanted to note for everybody is this is when you go through the red line, just make sure, it's kind of laborious what they did. There are certain things that they just moved because they thought they were better placed in another section. So some things might appear to have been removed, but they weren't. They were literally lifted and placed in another place where they thought that they were more appropriate.
Yeah, there's a few examples. That's a great to point out. There's a few examples where this big chunk of red line, why did they take that out? They didn't. They moved it to
They moved
an article where it made more sense so that someone looking for something in the charter would have these things in logical place all together. So, yeah, that's a great point.
Some of the recommendations they made too were instigated, that's the wrong word, but initiated by our law director as well. He gave us some input on some things. There were a couple of sections that are unconstitutional, so they wanted to remove those. But
Since
that information came from our law director.
Since 1966. And I agree with you. The minutes give you a sense of being there. They really do. They're fantastic.
Yeah, it was helpful even when you were there to read the minutes because it kind of refreshed your memory of how the conversation went.
There's one other, just a tip, an issue kind of, and while Steve's here about, I've read a lot of charter review ballot processes in the last few weeks, trying to get a sense of how people do this. And there's two methods that people go for. One is you have the changes grouped into topics and you separate those on the ballot. So this charter, I'm guessing, could have between 5 and 9 different issues if you separated them out and say, vote on removal of mayor, or vote on qualifications, or vote on. The other way to do it is have an amended and restated charter where there's one vote on the document taken as a whole. And I see that in my research, I see that more where there's a larger quantity of changes integrated to the document, where extracting pieces, parts is really tough to do. It'd be hard to explain to voters, and in my mind, confusing to voters. So it's not like we have one issue to vote on here. There would be numerous issues to kind of separate. The other thing about this chart, as you read it and read the red line, it's how integrated it is. Many articles refer to other articles who refer to other articles, and you have to run the string through that to piece it together. For those reasons, I'm coming out on having a single amended and restated charter, and we have one issue, one vote. Take the whole thing together. And there is some risk, of course, that it might all not pass, right? But I think there's so much good, positive changes here, from things that were constitutional that weren't in unconstitutional now, weren't in 1966, to language updates to, and then some substantive changes throughout that I think will make the city of Pepper Pike have better local government. So I just wanted to tee that up for everyone, and just kind of.
That's why I went ask Mr. Byron to write it as a single issue. So it is a starting point. We might, I would echo what Mr. LeMay said. I think that the single issue is the right way to go, but we may discuss it and the council may not want to go that way, but that's the way I think that's the way we should start.
I would imagine with an overhaul like this, you could potentially end up with contradictory election results then, right? Like one
could.
passes,
You
one
could.
doesn't, and
Yeah, I mean, they
you
could
need them both
accept
to-
part
right?
of it, but not other parts
Yeah.
of it. So,
Yeah.
I don't know that, well, that's the difficulty that,
And trying to
Just a-
anticipate,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that would be tricky.
and it might also be harder for the electors to understand if there were many separate issues
Yeah.
rather than the one whole issue.
Yeah.
So, but we have to have a starting place and we have to begin the discussion. So I've asked for the ordinance to be written by a week from tomorrow. And I think we should, what do you think? Should we have the first meeting, a special meeting where that's the only thing we discuss?
I
and
feel
then-
like that meeting's gonna be a bit of a beast, if any of them would be, right?
Pardon?
I would feel like the first meeting would be kind of a beast. So that, to my mind, would make sense to have that be its own
special
thing,
meeting?
yeah.
Yeah, I think so
That
too.
makes sense.
What if we did, since council meetings are moving to the second and fourth Tuesday, and we usually meet on the third and fourth Wednesday, why don't we make the third and, dedicate that third Wednesday, which is after the second Tuesday, immediately, it's the next day, actually, if you look at the calendar. And at the first regular meeting of the year, we do our first regular stuff and bring up questions,
Well, I think it
and then
might,
dedicate the next
I think it
one.
might be better to have a special meeting first so that we can really get into it and spend the time we need. And then maybe at one of the regular meetings, have a reading and some additional questions and discussion. And then the final would be a special meeting where we either, we accept it, modify it, or reject it.
But the way the calendar works is that the first
We'll just carry on.
council meeting is January 14th. So did
Mhm.
you want a
I was
special
ho-
meeting before that?
I was hoping to have
Okay.
a special meeting after the 7th or after.
Okay.
Now, I didn't try to pick a date because I know that Mr. Byron, because of his other cities, may have some conflicts
Yeah.
in that first week.
I will not have trouble getting an ordinance together by a week from today.
Okay, and are you available to meet any night that week?
This is the week of,
The 7th or the
The
6th?
6th through the 10th.
we've got a planning commission meeting here on Monday.
That'll be canceled.
Okay,
No
so
submissions.
the Monday would be available. Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm in another community.
We have a civil service.
And then there's,
meeting.
is that on Thursday?
I think that was did we schedule that the 9th at 6 PM?
Yeah, that's the Thursday.
Yeah.
So, but that shouldn't be more than an hour, so if you wanted to have something on the night.
Planning commission on that Monday?
Can we do it on the 6th?
Planning, I'm gonna cancel it
Oh.
because there was no submission.
No,
Oh.
no Steve on the 8th
Could we do the 6th?
Yeah, we do the 6th.
of the 6th.
Yeah, the ordinance will be essentially that changes the red line version of the charter as Exhibit A to an ordinance saying this is going on the ballot for May 5th.
That's why I've asked you, to write it, you know how. So, yeah, I mean, any day next week is fine with me
I'm okay with
We're
the
talking in the evening, correct?
in the evening.
Okay, good.
6th. The 6th at
The 6th at
7:30?
7:30?
Available other than the 6th.
Thursday, after the Civil Service Commission meeting.
6 o'clock, civil service.
Which date are we talking about?
The 6th at
Monday.
7:30?
Monday, January 6th?
That is the one day of that week that I have a problem. Sorry.
How about the 9th?
Yeah, we can try it.
9th,
7:30 on the 9th.
Can we do it 7,
No, I can't.
What day of the week?
7:30?
Thursday? Thursday?
Mhm.
I will try to be here, my best that I can.
You want to plan ones beyond that, Tony? So we'll do
Yeah,
that one
let's
and then we'll have the
plan.
regular council
Why don't we
meeting.
plan?
Do we need another special one, or can we just have the discussion at the regular council meeting?
I guess we can wait and see.
Why don't we tentatively, if we
Yeah.
can, let's tentatively schedule the other special meeting,
And then
I think
cancel.
probably
and then
for
cancel
the
if we need it.
3rd week.
The same Thursday, the 23rd?
Fine with, like I said,
For
I'm
the-
open as retiree.
But
All
That's
nights?
pretty much the only day in the entire month that I'm busy is on the 23rd.
Can we do a Monday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday and not a Thursday?
Could do Monday of that week?
That's a
But
holiday.
That's a
are you accounting for the 2 regular meetings?
The regular meeting will be on
I'm
the
saying,
14th.
we should schedule the second special meeting, but we can do away with it if we
Okay.
need to,
Yeah, just so we have it. Yeah.
just so we have it.
Why don't we do Wednesday, the 22nd? Because that's a usual council meeting day. That's the 4th Wednesday of the month. People might be free.
Fine with me.
Is that all right?
Available.
I'm available.
I still have that date booked for the regular meeting. I need to change that.
I know in my head, I'm gonna like
Days of the council meeting.
forget.
The council meetings are the 14th and the 28th.
Okay.
So Wednesday, the 22nd, 7:30?
Can you send that out tomorrow?
Yes.
Emmy will need to know that.
I'll just send out like a Outlook invite and have
Okay.
to send that to
Okay.
council.
Can you do that for the regular meetings too? Forget.
We could try to start that.
I don't know if Emmy's gonna be okay with these dates and times. I hope she will.
Yeah, we'll start there.
We can't get her father to answer for
I can
her.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm done.
All right. We stand adjourned. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, what is that?
It's
I
in
was
the
like,
envelope.
Airbnb, like, what's happening?